Hello again, dear listener, and welcome back to the Diaries of June. I'm here with another amazing story from my Nana June's fascinating life. Are you excited to hear it? I'm excited to share it with you. I chose this particular story because I've been thinking about something that happened while I was on Orchid Island. Even all the way back in San Francisco now, I can't stop thinking about it. I don't want to spoil Nana June's story, though, so I won't tell you what happened to me just yet. But it's so uncanny. You'll see what I mean. Something I will tell you about, though, is Nana June's sister, Claire. I think I mentioned Claire a bit in previous episodes, but I never told you what happened to her, did I? It's kind of a sad story. In 1927, Claire and her husband Harry were both found shot dead in the estate foyer. Poor Mrs. Talbot, remember the live-in nanny and housekeeper? She's the one who found the bodies. Nana June was living abroad at the time and had to move back to Orchid Island to take care of her niece, Claire's daughter, Virginia. Virginia was only 16 when it happened. Poor thing. At the time, the police ruled Claire and Harry's deaths a murder-suicide. That Harry lost it, killed Claire, and then killed himself. Nana June didn't believe it. And she actually figured out the truth later on. But that's not what today's episode is about. So, imagine being Nana June. You're back in the house where you grew up, where your sister and brother-in-law just died. Creepy, right? You have no idea just how creepy. But you're about to find out from Nana June herself. Settle in under your coziest blanket, listener, because it's time for some scary stories. December 1st, 1927. Dear Diary, I hope my hand isn't trembling too much to read this entry. Not that I expect I'll want to relive what just happened. I've just had such a scare. I don't know what to make of it. Where to even begin? I haven't written much this month, not since the voyage to Orchid Island. It's been a whirlwind of errands and arrangements. For Claire, Harry, Virginia, myself. Thankfully, Mr. and Mrs. Talbot have been saints, helping me with everything from funeral flowers to cooking my favorite meals. I've missed them so much. I don't mind admitting to you, Diary, that they are more like my parents than Mother and Father ever were. Maybe it's the Talbot's absence that has me in such a state. But no, I swear I heard something. And saw. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. But I'm all out of sorts. Start at the beginning, June. Stick to the facts. It started last Thursday. Early that morning, the Talbots had taken Virginia to St. Prudence for a meeting with the headmistress. I was alone in the estate. I am certain I was alone in the estate. It was mid-morning or so. I'd just fixed a cup of tea. I'd planned to organize some of Claire's things, so I took my tea upstairs to her old bedroom. It hurt to open that door and not find her sitting on the other side of it, Diary. More than I imagined it could. Those fraught teenaged years we spent living on Orchid Island together. And all the childhood summers and holidays before that. She was always on the other side of the door, reading a book in the sitting window, applying rouge at the vanity, sat on the carpet with her dollhouse, even when she was slamming the door in my face, telling me off. It was better than the emptiness of her bedroom now. Oh, I'm losing track again. Facts, June, facts. Stick to the facts. I set my tea on Claire's nightstand and sat down on the bed, which smelled of lavender. Mrs. Talbot had been keeping up with the washing and dusting despite the circumstances. My heart broke a bit at the idea. I set my tea on Claire's nightstand and sat down on the bed, which smelled of lavender. Mrs. Talbot had been keeping up with the washing and the dusting despite the circumstances. My heart broke a bit at the idea. I just sat there, diary. I couldn't bring myself to begin opening drawers, rifling through papers, categorizing knickknacks. As I looked around the room, my eye fell on a worn copy of Around the World in 80 Days. Claire's favorite. She'd never gotten to go around the world, had she? I think that's when I started crying, diary. I hadn't cried at all yet. Not in London when I heard the news. Not on the voyage to New York. Not at the funeral. Not once in the strange, blurred sadness of the last month. I'd wanted to cry. I was upset with myself for not crying, actually. Like I were some unfeeling monster. But the tears hadn't come. The tears finally came, sitting on Claire's bed. I don't know how long I sat there crying. I cried for all of it, for all the kind things I should have said to her, for what terrible things I had, for the years of silence, for our foursome down to one. Mother was gone, father was gone, and now, Claire. What snapped me out of my tears was a sudden crash from outside of Claire's room. I jumped at the sound and went to see what had caused it. On the floor was a framed portrait, lying face down. It had fallen off the wall, leaving a pale square of wall in the rows of hanging portraits. I couldn't fathom what had caused it to fall like that. But when I picked it up and saw what was inside the frame, I nearly fainted. On the floor was a framed portrait, lying face down. It had fallen off the wall, leaving a pale square of wall in the rows of hanging portraits. I couldn't fathom what had caused it to fall like that. But when I picked it up and saw what was inside the frame, I nearly fainted. It was a portrait of Claire and I. I remember the day we sat for it. I was 12, maybe, and terribly uncomfortable in my scratchiest dress. Claire was much the same, but trying hard to keep a stiff upper lip. We'd bonded over that experience. It became something of an inside joke. Father will make you pose for another portrait if you keep up with that racket, she'd chide me whenever I got too rambunctious. A fallen portrait that so happened to be of Claire and I. Just a coincidence, I told myself, and placed the portrait back on the nail. I didn't go back into Claire's room that day. But in the days that followed, that same portrait fell down another 6 times. 6 times, diary. Sometimes I was home for it. Sometimes it was Mrs. Talbot who found it. Once it was Virginia, who suggested I take it to my room until Mr. Talbot could fix the nail. Old house, old walls, old nails. That's all it was, surely. Which brings me to today, alone in the estate again. The portrait was in my room leaning face down against my bureau. I specifically recall placing it face down. But then I heard a crash in the hallway, outside of Claire's room, just like I'd heard 7 times before. I raced upstairs and rounded the hallway to find nothing. not a portrait out of place. I was starting to think I imagined it when I heard it again. Loud this time, like it was happening right behind me. I whirled around, and again, nothing. Just me, an empty hallway, and an empty estate. I had to check, diary. I had to see if the portrait was still in my room. My legs were trembling as I walked the short length of hallway from Claire's room to my own. When I reached my doorway, I would have let out a scream, but there was no air in me. The portrait was leaning against my bureau, where I'd left it, but it was facing up. Two little girls stared at me from out of a frame I'd specifically left face down. I ran, diary. I ran downstairs and out the door all the way to Harry's study in the gatehouse. And that's where I am now, scribbling this like a madwoman. The Talbots should be home soon. I don't know if I'm going to tell them about this. I don't want to scare them. And definitely not Virginia. Am I losing my mind, diary? Did I just think I'd set the portrait face down? But what about the crashes? Did I imagine those too? But no, I couldn't have. The Talbots heard them. Virginia heard them. They found the portrait on the ground too. Mr. Talbot wondered about raccoons in the walls. Maybe it's as simple as that. Yes, the sounds are raccoons, and the portrait in my room, well, surely I'm misremembering. It was always face up. Because what's the alternative, diary? That my sister, or her husband, or both, are haunting the estate? Preposterous. This isn't a Lovecraft story. So why am I still trembling? Oh, Nana June, you have me trembling too. That's so spooky. But that's not all she wrote on the subject of spooky happenings in the estate. Here's an update from a couple of days later. Dear Diary, I'm glad you are not sentient. You would think me ridiculous for the last entry. Obviously, the stress of this past month has gotten to me. I spoke to the Talbots about hearing the crashing sounds again, even after I'd moved the portrait into my room. Although, I didn't mention the portrait in my room turning itself around. Mr. Talbot insisted it was raccoons, and Mrs. Talbot agreed. Once, she told me, when Virginia was about 5, I swore I heard something in the attic. I couldn't sleep for a week. But it turned out that a raccoon and her kits had taken up residence among our Christmas ornaments. Imagine my surprise. So there you have it, diary. Raccoons. There's even a precedent for stowaways in the walls of the estate. Although Mr. Talbot didn't find any furry friends in his sweep, he did replace the nail in the hallway and hanged the portrait again. It hasn't fallen down or turned itself around since. As for the crashing sound, well, I've only heard it once more. It was the dead of night, 3:30 or so, and I was woken out of a sound sleep by yet another crash. I rushed to check on Virginia, but she was slumbering away, even snoring a bit. The Talbots, of course, were across the garden in their own beds. I had to see the portrait, diary. I know how foolish it sounds, but I had to see. So I walked down the hallway, past Claire's room, and the portrait was still on the wall, exactly where it was supposed to be. Although, and I feel thoroughly ridiculous writing this. Oh, but it was dark, and the middle of the night. I was half awake. I'm certain I didn't see the portrait right itself from crooked to straight. It was just a trick of the light. Of course it was. Time to grow up, June. There's no such thing as ghosts. Right? Oh my gosh, how creepy is that? But here's the creepiest part. I heard the same sounds. It happened right before I came back to San Francisco. I was alone in the estate, just like Nana June. I was upstairs in that same hallway with all the framed portraits on the wall. And yes, that portrait of Nana June and Claire is up there too, hanging right on the wall, looking like it hasn't been dusted in about 40 years. Right as I was about to turn the corner and head down the staircase, I heard the crash behind me. It scared the confetti out of me, listener. I spun around to look, but nothing had fallen. I checked all of the surrounding rooms, too, and nothing. Not a sheet out of place. I couldn't make heads or tails of it, but it stuck in my mind. I even told my parents about it later, and they shrugged it off as old houses making noise. Still, I kept thinking about it. It was so loud and seemed like it was right behind me. Ugh, even remembering it now, my heart's racing. And then I found this entry from Nana June. And I have to tell you, listener, I'm so glad I was back in San Francisco already when I read it. If I had been alone in the estate reading this entry, oh my gosh, I might have run right out the front door. Old houses like that have so much history. You really never know what you're walking into, do you? Who's lived, loved, and lost inside of those walls? Who might still be there? Almost 100 years later, do you think it's still raccoons? It's kind of cute to think about generations of furry stowaways in the walls. So let's go with the cute answer. Cute is way better than creepy, don't you think? Oh, speaking of cute, I have a great entry picked out for our next time together, listener. Nana June's first breakup. Aww. Maybe this is weird to say about a breakup, but it's so good. Her little coming-of-age story. Even in 1908, "It's not you, it's me," is a timeless exit line. A timeless exit line is still something I'm working out for ending these episodes. Until next time, June Crew is a strong contender, but what do you think, listener? Peace out, homies. Easy listening, easy listener. No, just kidding. Those aren't actually options. Let's stick with until next time, June Crew. Because you, listener, are in my inner circle, a part of my June Crew. And thanks, as always, for being here with me.
This has been June's Journey, The Lost Diaries from Wooga. You can step into June Parker's shoes and become the detective herself in June's Journey, the #1 hidden object game in the world. Live the glamorous 1930s life as you journey around the world, finding hidden objects, adventure, and even a little romance. Download June's Journey for free on the Apple App Store or Google Play Store. Thanks for listening.